as Jan mentioned, my name is Jason Myers, and I'm coming to you live from sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania today. And in addition to working for the Content Factory, I'm also the PR coordinator and social media manager for the Alternative Board. And my love of writing goes back, way back, at least first or second grade. I remember my favorite part of elementary school is the writing contests, and it's just been a lifelong passion of mine. And since that time, I've written various capacities for magazines, blogs, newspapers, advertising copy, liner notes for albums. And the past few years, the focus has been more on content creation, which is basically a fancy industry buzzword for writing. I've also been a business owner, and I wrote ad copy for my business, and I also wrote a lot of checks to vendors, something I'm sure you guys can all relate to. And so I'm happy to be on the other side now, writing for different clients and trying to help them get their message out to the public. And you might have seen in the summary for today's blog, when you signed up, it's never been easier to create and publish web content for your company. It used to be you pretty much had to be a programmer to get anything online, and now there's so many platforms from WordPress on down to Facebook. You think it and you're out there broadcasting. But with that bombardment of information, your potential customers and all of us we're faced with just sort of information overload these days. So it's kind of tough to be heard over all that noise. And advertising is trickier now too, because we've all become pretty savvy at tuning out any obvious sales pitches and clicking away from them. And so it's easier, but at the same time, there's a whole new set of challenges. And so I'm going to share with you some of the current techniques that I find to be effective in keeping a steady stream of quality writing flowing for your business and your blog. I mean, everybody gets a bit of writer's block from time to time. Some of you may just be getting your feet wet in the whole blogosphere thing and need some tips on how to come up with ideas for content and things that other people are going to want to read and share. I do my best to tread that middle ground in these webinars so that the newbies are comfortable and the old pros can maybe pick up a few tricks and hopefully teach me something as well, because I'm sort of an eternal student of this whole process. So most of you are probably entrepreneurs, considering that you came here through the TAB network, which means a couple things. You're hardworking and you're creative. So in my estimation, you already have the two biggest ingredients in successful blogging. And now it's just a matter of sort of heating up your content a few degrees and maybe branching out into some new styles of writing to keep your readers from being bored, rather. So like most entrepreneurs, when I started my first business, I had two main motivators, and see if you can relate to this. Like, number one, I like to do things my way and be my own boss. And the second thing was that I felt there was a need in my community for something, and I wanted to fulfill that need. So think of blogging in the same way. Think of problems that you've overcome and that you could share your advice to help others. I mean, chances are if you've overcome some of those obstacles the hard way, you probably have some valuable insight already that you can help other people through their struggles. And that type of experience is definitely in the spirit of the Alternative Board. And your personal stories and tips can make a great starting point for what you can share and write about on your blog. So without further ado, let's get into some of the topics I wanted to cover. The main focus for today, I wanted to keep it on how to come up with hot topics to write about. And no, I'm not talking about the store at the mall where all the goth kids hang out. Just topics that people want to share and engage on, maybe comment on. Say, hey, did you check out this story? I sort of tried to break it down into four main ways. And I'll tell you the four ways, and then I'll go into each one of them. The first way is follow the leader. And again, if you're an entrepreneur, chances are you're not necessarily the best follower. You're more of a leader yourself. But there's a lot of people out there that sort of blaze a trail for you and can make your path a little easier if you follow what some of the success formulas out there. The second of the four ways is brainstorming. And again, that's something that should be natural to people that are involved in the Alternative Board, because whether it's mastermind groups or the peer advisory groups, that you all know the value of getting input and different perspectives from people. The third way is to do reviews, something popular, something that's already out there, and sort of either piggyback on that brand name that's already been established and have people find you through those search methods. And we'll get into all of these in a bit. And the fourth way is just to get personal in your blog, and not necessarily a diary, not like the people that tweet what they ate every 5 minutes, but just putting some of yourself into your writing, just letting your personality shine through. The first method, as I called it, follow the leader or leaders. So here we got this caveman, and yes, I'm going to bombard you with geeky clip art because it keeps it a little bit more entertaining for myself. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you can customize it. And what I mean by that is there's already proven methods. So if you're new or you're new at writing or you're stuck, we're going to show you a lot of ways to see what other people are doing that is working, and then see how you can customize it for your own needs and your own writing. One way is to search for what's trending. You've probably all heard that term before. And it's just another way of saying what's popular, what everybody's talking about at any given moment. You can set Google alerts, and I've talked about this quite a bit in previous webinars on social media and PR, and that's a good way to tell Google what you want it to search for you. So you can type in any keywords related to your industry or things that you might want to talk about, and then it will send its Google robots out to find the current stories for you, and then you can sort of plug yourself into that stream. You want to always be bookmarking and skimming hot blogs from the influencers in your industry, and probably something that everybody's already doing. I try to keep a bunch of different folders of bookmarks pertaining to different topics, so I can go back if I'm ever stuck. You want to create and monitor Twitter lists for the people that are out there on Twitter, and again, that's something that I've talked about quite a bit before, so I won't get into it too much today. But if you know me and anybody at my company, we're real big fans of Twitter lists for various reasons. And content curation, again, just another way of seeing what everybody is sharing and organizing all of the different stories around any given topic. And there's a lot of cool free tools out there for you to use for that. A few of them that I'll just briefly skim on, paper.ly, rt.ly. I don't really know how to say these. Paperly, I think, is how most people say it. Feedly.com is another one. So I'll show you some of those real quick here. Looking at Tab's Twitter page, you'll notice anytime you pull up your own Twitter page, you've seen the trends, and they change every day. They change throughout the day, and that's a great way of seeing up to the moment what topics people are blabbing about, sharing. You name it, it's there. And chances are most of them aren't going to pertain to your company, but every once in a while you'll find something that you could work into to a story yourself, and again, piggyback on that popularity and create content that's already hot, that's proven to be hot, that's happening. Every social media platform now pretty much has their own version of this. Twitter's got their trends. Google Plus has a trending part of their page. Facebook does. And even LinkedIn's gotten in on the act here with a new tool on their site for all the top articles that are being shared on LinkedIn. And I know that's a real, probably the most popular one for the B2Bs out there in terms of the social media channels. So I mentioned Google Alerts. Real quickly, if you haven't done them before, the best way to set them up is just to go into your browser and type in google.com/alerts. And again, I'm going to go through this stuff pretty quick, so don't worry about it. You don't have to take frenzied notes or anything. These webinars are recorded, and I'll be more than happy to email anybody afterwards with anything you might have missed. But yeah, Google Alerts allow you to type in and follow any keywords or things that pertain to your business, things that you want to write about, and get fed the top stories of the day. So I typed in work-life balance. That's one of them that I follow for the alternative board, and then it'll show me in real time here what newest stories are. There were 7 when I did this. And then what they do, again, if you haven't used it before, is every day in your inbox or whatever, however often you want them to send it to you, they'll just provide you with all of the top stories for the keywords that you put in there. So once again, it's a great way of just seeing who's writing about the topics that are of interest to you or your company, and maybe getting inspired by reading what some other people are doing, or at least getting a feel for what's trending. Now here, I got my little clip art Tweety bird there saying, Twitter lists are a sweet way to see what type of content is considered hot by peers and influencers. So we're real big on Twitter lists. I won't hammer it because we've gone through it a lot before. Little shameless plug here for the last webinar. But if you're interested in seeing how to set up a Twitter list, it's so simple. But I did go through it step by step, and you can check out any of the past webinars at the webinar archive at thealternativeboard.com. Okay, enough of that. Let's get to the good stuff. Paperly, again, is a good content curation site, and the Alternative Board, you may have seen, has the tab Pulse that we put out daily, and you can select the sources that you want to see stories from. So at any given time, we're following the top business blogs, the top influencers, writers, people that are tweeting about things that are of interest to you, and you can customize that any way you want. I think you get up to like maybe 25, somewhere around there of different sources that you can have, and then they put them all on one page, so you can sort of create your own newspaper, and a lot of people probably already do that. And here's what it looks like when you open up the page. You see there's like some business stories from Inc., some stuff from Entrepreneur, and it gives you a chance to keep up on the headlines without having to scour through the entire site. Real-Time is a newer service by the people that make Bitly, my favorite URL shrinking device. So Real-Time, what they do is, again, you type in any kind of subject that you're looking to write about, and you can sort of narrow it down or keep it broad. And the cool thing about Real-Time, they'll actually tell you how many people are clicking on this that particular link per minute. I mean, talk about like keeping up to date with what people are interested in. So you can see if a topic's burning up the charts, it might be something that you want to write about or try to dial into your company, see how it relates to what you're writing about. Feedly.com, I am not as familiar with. I know it's a real popular one. I just set up an account for it, so I thought I'd just mention that real quick because it's also another way to gather a lot of content and follow different people all at once and have all of the different businesses in one place. So let's see. Let's move into what a blog post looks like and what we can sort of gather from how different blogs perform or different posts perform versus each other. This post here is came out on Forbes a few months ago, and it was written by Jason Zickerman, the CEO of the Alternative Board. And the headline here says, "Resolutions all small business owners should make in 2014." And I think that's a pretty strong headline. All small business owners, it's sort of all-encompassing, and it's coming from a guy who knows what he's talking about. So I think that's a pretty strong one, and as you can see, it's gotten over 4,000 views already. So that's a pretty good success there. Now, by comparison, this same basic topic was written about by another guy, and I'm not critiquing Mr. Hendricks here. I don't know him, but he's obviously very smart, and he's writing for Forbes. But the reason I brought this comparison up is because his headline says, "4 New Year's resolutions your small business should keep this year." You notice there's a slight difference in the tone there. It's almost like, maybe, and it's not as strong. And sometimes you really have to be a little forceful in your post, or more intriguing at least. And it might be due to that, or maybe the way Tab promotes things. But this post got quite a few fewer views, and it came out even sooner. So just something to keep in mind is how important headlines are. That is something I will kind of harp on. It's really important. And sites like Forbes, this is a sample of the Forbes page. A lot of pages, websites want you to know what's trending on their content. Here Forbes has all the trending stories of the day and the most read. So you can go through and really see, again, what's happening, and just as importantly, what are the headlines that people are clicking on. And we're going to revisit this, so just put that in your back pocket for a minute. We'll come back to that. So the second out of the 4 techniques, if you remember, is brainstorming. And as I mentioned, it doesn't have to be as formal as an alternative board peer advisory group, but you could even just have a group of your own peers or people, perhaps other bloggers that you respect and trade ideas with, just people to bounce ideas around when you get stuck, or maybe bring a different perspective in. Your social media followers could be another way of brainstorming and getting ideas from them, seeing what they respond to, what they click on, and maybe even just asking them outright for ideas. That's sometimes a tactic that you can just sort of pick the brains of the people that are already interested in you on your social media sites. I put community friends here, and that could be the virtual communities or even your real-life community, people that you hang out with, your peers. But for the most part, I'm talking about like the communities on sites like LinkedIn and Google+. That's a great place to sort of bounce ideas around with peers and see what other people are getting picked up, what other posts and blogs are getting a lot of comments and a lot of shares, so you can get a feel for what's happening out there. And I threw this one on here, interviewing others, because you might be able to start, if you're pressed for ideas, start with interviewing people in your own peer group, because chances are, if they're interesting enough to be amongst your fellow peers, then they probably have something that you could learn from and maybe pick their brain and do this sort of formal interview. Those types of blog posts write themselves, and it's a good way for you to share their story, get some good karma built up, but also put your perspective on it and maybe put their tips out there, because maybe they're not a blogger, but they just have a really great story to tell, and you can help them tell it. So number 3 out of the 4. Again, I went back to review something. I put something popular. You might be actually breaking some news. It might be something like I used to do a lot of album reviews and concert reviews. Sometimes I would really try to choose to review things that people hadn't heard yet, so I could be sort of the first mover on it. And in your writing, you could review a favorite book, maybe a business book, or a tool in your industry that's new, maybe a new service or a web platform that's relevant to your field, a performance. Like I said, I'd put a lot of reviews out there for music, but it just depends on what your business is. But what's really important is that you bring your passion and your perspective to your writing. That's what's going to show through. If you're really passionate about, say, a book, one way or the other, and you can share that, that'll show through, and people will pick up on that, and that's a good way to create strong content. And it might be something that you're passionately against. That's another thing that we'll get into is stirring up a little bit of controversy. You always want to link to your sources, and I put that here because it fits in with, say you're doing a book review, you can and should link to the author if they have a page, link maybe to the Amazon page where you can send some traffic their way if your review is glowing and people want to buy it, make it easy for them. And putting the links in your blog posts serves several purposes. It increases your credibility because you're showing that you're including outside professional perspectives. You're doing a little bit of research. It improves the searchability just by the function of the way that the search engines scour the internet, and it encourages shareability because if you're writing a review of something and you're linking to the author, they're probably more likely to share it with their followers, and there's a good chance their followers might have even more clout, maybe bring some new people into your blog or your social media page or whatever it is that you're writing your posts for. Okay, so for the fourth out of the four, I said getting personal, telling your story. And this is, again, a good way to use your personal experiences, and it's something that people latch onto. And you know, you've probably seen posts where you saw a glimpse of the author, they maybe let their guard down a little bit, or maybe just really had a really interesting story that they wanted to tell, and I'm sure you all do too. And that's sometimes a source of really good content if it's applicable to your business. And you want to, it's okay to be controversial or provocative. And I put reasonably in parentheses here because obviously you don't want to start any flame wars or anything, and especially for a business page. But it's okay to sort of poke and prod a little bit. And if nothing else, it's a great way to get comments going back and forth when there's some strong opinions one way or the other. A good technique. You might feel comfortable with it, you might not, but we definitely encourage our clients to take a stand on things. And I think people tend to respect you more if you take a stand versus just being too vanilla all the time. That gets a little bit boring. And be conversational. Don't talk down to your readers, I guess I should say. You want to speak to them, not at them. And that's the same for whether it's a blog post or a social media page or anything like that. You want to be speaking with people and creating these conversations. That's what the comment section on your blog post is for. So moving on to a little bit more in-depth aspect of the content. I put here content is king. That's a cliche we've all heard. But image is everything. Again, two cliches here, but they're usually cliches are such for a reason. And I think they're both really important things to think about. Excuse me. You want to make your blog posts or, again, content that isn't necessarily about blog posts. That's what I'm focusing on today, but it could be a landing page, could be a newsletter that you send out, even your emails. You want everything to look nice, to look professional, and show that you care, that you took enough time to construct things in a way that's pleasing to the eye and that makes sense and doesn't have a lot of grammatical errors and things like that will kind of blow your credibility. And one of the things that I was taught early on by Carrie is you definitely want to break up large blocks of text. Nobody wants to see that. It's just imposing, and it's not really going to keep people's attention for too long. There's different techniques you can use, whether it's bullet points, maybe including some subheadings in bold. You definitely want to include pictures, and we'll get more into that in a second here. But just keep the flow of it going. Don't make it a challenge for people to read. It should be a pleasure. And another thing to keep in mind is to keep your sentences and paragraphs relatively short. Every audience is different. You know your audience. But for the most part, you want to keep things pretty concise, eliminate a lot of the extra fluff. And you definitely want to proofread. This seems like it would go without saying, but I'm surprised and sometimes just appalled at some of the mistakes I see on even huge sites. But, it happens. It happens to everybody. It happens to me. So that's why it's always good to have a second set of eyes, if you can, because sometimes you just sort of gloss over things. You've been up all night writing. It's good to have people look at your stuff so that you don't, again, blow your credibility with a goofy error. When it comes to the technical aspects of formatting your blog posts, there's different style guides that you could use, some pre-existing style guides. AP has, is one of the more popular writing guides. Yahoo has one that came out a few years ago that's, it was really cool at the time because it was one of the first ones written by an internet company. Or you can create your own. That's something that the Content Factory has done, and it's a good way to make sure you have a set of rules to keep continuity in your writing. Because you always want if you're looking for return readers, you want to have a consistency and a tone that people are comfortable with and respond to. And it's especially true if there's a lot of different people contributing to your blog. Everybody can obviously have their own flavor, but you want to keep certain things sort of even and equalized, whether it just be your stance on the Oxford comma, something that Carrie has strong opinions about. But real style sort of happens behind the scenes. All these little decisions that you're making, they shouldn't be something that people notice if it's done correctly. They should just, their eyes and minds should just sort of flow through the content. Now, onto the more graphic side of the image aspect. It's very important to use eye-catching images. And I put as bait here, sort of as a way to lure people in. And it's also, like I'd mentioned, a relief from just the overabundance of words. It sort of breaks up the content. And it's also important for, as a lot of these visual social media pages rise to prominence, things like Pinterest and Instagram just keep getting more and more popular. A lot of times having good images, and especially unique images, is another good way to open up avenues of traffic to your site. Infographics are still pretty hot. Charts, things like that, those are always real shareable. I also put in parentheses here like things like videos, real photos, behind-the-scenes stuff, slides. Slideshows are another kind of trick to get people to click through if they're not done too obnoxiously. You never want to steal images from the web. You can't afford it, and I think that most people don't do it intentionally necessarily, but you can't just go into Google Images and say, "Oh, that's a great picture. It'd be perfect for my blog." It'll come back to bite you, and maybe I'll let Carrie give some examples of that, because it can be. You definitely got to keep it above the boards, or.
Yeah, it gets real expensive real fast.
Hey,
we
Carrie.
have been sued as an agency. Hi, Jason. Had to pop in on this. We've been sued as an agency in the past for this. Just about every other agency that we've worked with, this has been an issue. I don't think that the lines were very clearly drawn, especially in the early ages of the Internet, but we're not really there anymore. And what that means is you've got to go to like a big stock. I wouldn't recommend Getty Images because they're highly litigious, first of all, and also their images are just more expensive. And big stock, you can get images for less than $5 to use on a blog. And if you want to use it on a landing page or in other marketing collateral, there are different licenses that you can choose. But basically, you're looking at anywhere from $5 to $30, unless you need something really specific, and then you might end up paying $50. But even if you pay $100 for the image, it's well worth the money, because then it's yours. You don't have to worry about it. You've got that receipt in your inbox that you can always pull up should a lawyer come calling. But there's metadata attached to basically every image you find online, or a lot of the professionally taken images. Getty is famous for this. So what happens is you post the image onto your site, and they have these computer programs that do nothing but troll for that metadata and find the unauthorized uses of the images on your blog. And the cost for that is usually around, sometimes depending on the photo, Getty would sue you for $775, on up to like $5,000 per image. I know of somebody who got sued for $8,000 for one image that they thought was fair use, and it was not. That lawsuit ended up getting settled for $3,000, but lawyers had to be involved, and it's just a very costly mistake to make, and it's an easy one to avoid. So buy your images without exception. I would not even recommend relying on free image sources, because sometimes unfree images find their way into these resources, and just because somebody else said that it's okay for you to use doesn't mean that you're immune from the copyright liability should one of those computer programs find that image on your site. So whether you're using the images in advertisements, or an agency that I know of got sued for using an image in a proposal, and somehow that proposal got forwarded around, right? Maybe they posted it to their website as an example, but that came back to bite them, and they got sued for, I don't They wouldn't tell me how much, but it was a lot. It must have been a lot by virtue of the fact that they wouldn't tell me how much it was. So I cannot emphasize this enough. Pay for photos every single time, and you'll be glad you did. It's a lot of headaches that you don't have to worry about. And if you do have images that you haven't paid for on your site, I recommend going through and replacing them all. It might take you an afternoon, it might take you longer, but eventually those copyright infringement notices are going to find their way to your doorstep if you don't protect yourself. So that's all I have to say on the matter now. And if you guys have any questions, I can answer them at the end of the call.
Cool. Thanks, Kara. Yeah, I should mention Big Stock is one. Shutterstock I wrote on here. That's one that I really like a lot. Pixabay.com is a newer free image site. I think they're pretty in the clear because they're in cahoots with Shutterstock, and they give you free images, and they're sponsored by Shutterstock. So Shutterstock has their images on the same page, but there's not a way to mix it up. So that's a good one to look at. The images that you're getting for free generally aren't as good of quality, and I think it's a way to sort of lure people into buying a Shutterstock subscription. But either way, those are a couple cool places to look at for pictures. Now I have come up with what I call the Myers hierarchy of image usage. And no, it's not really patent pending. It's just a dumb joke that I tell myself to stay awake at 3 in the morning. But what I'm trying to get at is the way I think of it, custom images are better than stock images, and stock images are better than no images, because you definitely need to have some graphics happening, or your site is going to be really boring and probably not get nearly the kind of traffic it could. Stock images are great, but they can also be really cheesy. You want to be careful with what you use, make sure that it's not the same picture that's being used by a million other people. And a lot of times the licenses for companies like Shutterstock will allow you to do some customization on it. And just check into the license on each one. Or if you have somebody that's sort of graphically savvy, that's always the best way, I think, is to come up with either unique photographs or unique graphic design whenever possible. I threw this in for a little comic relief. If the Huffington Post has even a weekly column on this called This Week in Ridiculous Stock Photos, and this guy doing yoga in his yard for no reason. He's probably getting grass stains, but this just shows you sort of the extremes of how silly some stock photos can get. So sometimes it's good to try to maybe just take your own photos and work with actual content. It also shows a good behind-the-scenes vibe for your company. So what other types of blog posts perform best? We went over quite a few different ones here, but here's some of the biggies. The how-to blogs, those are one of the biggest ones, and we all read them, we all share them, and just the more useful and actionable, the better. Giveaways or freebies, I put the abbreviation for what's in it for me, because you definitely, that's your end user, that's probably what they're thinking. It's like, okay, if I'm going to donate a minute or 10 minutes of my time to read your content, what am I going to get out of this? So sometimes doing little contests are a good way to reward people. We actually just started one a couple days ago with Tab to give away some books to family business owners as a way to celebrate our Tab's focus on family businesses this month. We've all seen the Something of the Year or the So-and-So, the Best of the Year awards. Those are real big. Companies like Forbes and Inc. Really do well with those, and pretty much everybody's got their own version of the best this or that of the year. Shocking stats. That's like money in the bank. The more you can catch people's attention with that quick little headline, the better. It doesn't have to be appalling stat, just something that's surprising. I call it number 5, poke the bear, or stir the hornet's nest, whatever it is. Just some the types of blog posts that are intentionally put out there to create a little bit of a stir. And lists. Those are probably the most popular types, and there's several. Like we've all seen the 10 reasons why you need to do this, 5 things you should never do if you don't want to be a loser, 6 tricks to make you the best at that, and so on and so forth. But they're tried and true. And one trend I've noticed is that it seemed like a few years ago, you have these top 20 lists, and then it went down to top 10, and it's just as people's attention spans gets shorter, it's almost like the one reason why. You almost have to go there now. You remember before I showed you that that part of the Forbes site that had their trending stories and most read? I'm going to bring that back here now that I showed you some of the types of blogs, because we can sort of get an idea here of those headlines in play. You see several of these are lists, the top 100 quotes, 10 signs that a company is a culture problem, etc. Then you've got the how-to, how managers keep employees from jumping ship. We see these kind of posts all the time, and the reason that you see them all the time is because they're successful. They're the most highly clicked on and trending. Again, my little poke the bear thing, as I call it, they put headlines out there intentionally a little bit controversial. Global warming alarmists are getting desperate. Well, so no matter what side of that coin that you're on, you got to click through and see what they're talking about. So that's some good little tricks, and Forbes is definitely not above using them. They know what they're doing. Okay, so when it comes to writing your content, one of the most tried and true piece of advice is never bury the lead, and we talked about the importance of great headlines. Now, as I was doing some research for this, I wanted to find some stats to back it up. I saw this at Outbrain.com. Headlines with 60 to 100 characters earn the highest click-through rates, and there's different research to back these up. I didn't want to get too far into all of the charts and graphs, but the point being is that there is a sort of a sweet spot where you want to keep your headlines. If you have too few characters, it can suffer, and if you have too many, it can suffer. So there's people out there that have done statistical research to see where that sweet spot is, and you can kind of keep it in there, in that zone. This blog at Business to Community said 70 characters are all that Google and Bing will display when they feature your article in the search engine results. So that's something to keep in mind too. If you get too wordy on a headline or what you're talking about, they're just going to put an ellipsis in there, and you might not get your point across. So you kind of want to front load it in the first 2 or 3 words, because that's sometimes people don't even read past that. I know some people that have told me outright, if a tweet doesn't catch their attention in the first 3 words, they just keep on scrolling. So these are the challenges. These are the times we live in, people, and we know it. We're probably all guilty of it too. And on with the don't bury the lead advice. This writer, copy blogger, pointed out that on an average, 8 out of 10 people will read the headline copy, but only 2 out of those 10 will read the rest of your content. So there you see the importance again of having a great headline. If only 20% of the people are going to actually read through, you want to do everything you can to lure them in, and that's why we pay attention to things like great headlines and go to great pains to come up with very different versions of it to bounce around, and sometimes we'll go through 3 or 4 or more versions of a headline before we even move on. So what you see here is some of you have maybe read this. Type in the chat box if you have, because if you have, you know what an awesome book this is. And I thank Carrie for turning me on to this. This is some mandatory reading at the Content Factory when I started writing with them. So it's the book's called Made to Stick, and it's really, it breaks down the science of what's shareable, what sticky content is, and what they mean by that is things that stick in your brain, things that get shared, content that just is so hot or becomes viral. There's a science to that, and they've done a better job than anybody I've seen of getting to the core of that. This quote here, one of the authors, Chip Heath, is quoting a prominent writer, saying, the writer says, I've always been a believer that if I've got 2 hours in which to write a story, the best investment I can make is to spend the first hour and 45 minutes of it getting a good lead, because after that everything will come easily. So that's, again, just driving home that point of how important it is to front load your content with the best bait to keep people going, and sort of they also get into that inverse pyramid form of writing that goes way back to the early days of newspapers and things like that. But what they mean is, start obviously put your best foot forward and bring people in, and then just so they continue on to the next sentence and the next sentence after that. on Made to Stick, they break it down into the best content has 6 common features. One is that it's simple. Doesn't mean it's stupid or anything like that, or you have to dumb down your content. It's that the principle of it is easy to grasp. It's not extremely challenging. 2, that your content is unexpected, especially with headlines. That's, again, you see those kind of like shocking statistics, things like that always draw more attention than boring vanilla headlines. Things that are concrete, that people can definitely latch on to, that there's proof to it, that they believe in, that the content is credible, again, that they believe you, that there's a sincerity there, and that it tugs at some sort of emotional trigger. These are all things that they go into in great detail in this book. Can't recommend it enough. And again, going back to telling stories, that's one of the things that they touch on a lot in this book, is how important it is to have that personal side to your content. And wow, look at that. It spells success. Well, almost. But that's a good way to remember the 6 steps whenever you're trying to evaluate your content. So enough free plugs for Made to Stick, but check it out if you haven't. I'm getting ready to wrap up my jibber jabber here, but before we go, I wanted to show you a quick example of how a sort of popular blog is conceived and birthed, for lack of better terms, starting with raw data. Now, again, there's probably a lot of people out there that are in the B2B field, or maybe have some drier content to write about. I'm going to show you an example that just happened recently. The Alternative Board puts out a quarterly survey. It goes out to hundreds of entrepreneurs, CEOs, business owners, and the one version of the survey results that I get back is like 12 pages of questions. So our goal here is to, in this case, is to get press, me being their PR rep. But I'm going to show you sort of how content works on different levels. One, somebody had to come up with good questions that were perplexing enough to get the answers that you ultimately want to share. So there's content there. Once the survey's results came back, we sort of scoured them, brainstormed them, and looked for some of the key findings that we thought stood out the most that would make some sharp content. This one was on family businesses. So the fact that 62% of family businesses don't think that their business is going to remain in the family, that stood out to us a lot. And we were thinking, well, that's probably something that would also interest other people, especially if you're in a family business or thinking about joining one. So from that raw data, we created some new content, a press release. And the press release is another, it's almost like writing a blog. You've got your attention-grabbing headline, the most important stuff up front, and I'll call it a lead here, your title and your subtitle. And you want to put all the stuff there just in case people don't even read past that. You want to make sure that they get the point right away, and then if it's something that they're into or their readers are into, then they will. So a couple weeks after that press release went out, it got picked up by Small Business Trends, a real popular business blog, and they took our lead, and here you see it in action. Those same statistics that we saw as important and front-loaded in our press release got worked into a really great story on family businesses. And again, it goes back to creating this shareable content, this buzzworthy content. This one's only been out for a week or so, and it's already gotten 257 shares just on this page alone. So that's pretty good for something that isn't really that mainstream. Here's your free bonus tip. Your readers are busy. Get to the point and deliver clever, actionable content quickly. I just wanted to sort of put that on its own page because it's not that we're saying that your content needs to be short or dumbed down by any means. Long blog content is some of the most successful, but you definitely want to cut through the fluff, get to the point, and give them actionable things that they can take away and apply to their lives. That's where you're going to see your best results. Now, speaking of the length, I'm not going to go into that too much, but one of the industry leaders that in the marketing and PR industry. Neil Patel is a co-founder of Kissmetrics, and he's a pretty big deal in the PR and marketing field. And he's gone on record as saying that there's no magic bullet to it. It's not that short content is best or long blog content is best. That you sort of should vary it, but statistically, it's been proven, at least in his research, that the longer blogs do perform better overall in terms of search, in terms of SEO, in terms of even shareability. So there's, even though we talk so much about people's attention spans on social media, there is a lot to be said for also including a lot of longer blogs and more in depth. It also gives you more chance to organically include keywords and things like that, which is probably a topic for a whole other webinar. So I'm going to leave you with a final thought here. I thought this was hilarious. Again, when I was doing some research, this guy really had a unique take on it. His name's David Spark. He's got a company called Spark Media Solutions. And his blog that came up in my search, the blog itself post was called Why I'm Annoyed by All How to Create Great Content Advice. That was just a really unique way of spinning it. And I found it probably by Google searching how to get great content. He says, the internet is filled with absurdly obvious advice about creating great content. Hopefully I didn't give you guys too much of that today. He says, let me save you a ton of time reading it and give you a basic summary. Great content is original, interesting, and engaging. So there's three things that it kind of boils down to. You want to learn from what other people are doing, but you do want to keep your own tone of originality and stand out, put your own spin on things, keep it interesting. If it's not interesting to you to write or edit, it's probably not going to be to your readers either. And keep things engaging. That should always be one of the goals, is to get comments and get a conversation started. So I always end a lot of these webinars by saying, well, what if you don't have the time to do this? What if you know you need a blog, but you're so busy working on your business or in your business? You can enlist guest bloggers. That's a great way of doing it, because then you've got people that sometimes are experts that are looking for new homes, new places to contribute to. It could be a paid situation. It could be just a trade out for additional traffic to their content or their product. And of course, you can always hire a third-party content creator. That's one of the things that we do. And there's a lot of people out there that just do that strictly for a living. That keep up on all of it and keep up on all the trends and all the SEO and all that stuff that you might not want to be bothered with. So that's another possibility. And speaking of content creators, now Carrie and Jan sort of stole my thunder here, because I had a little introduction for Carrie that I was saving for the end. Dun, dun, dun. That's my boss there on the left.
You did, wow.
So I told Jan I hope she's in good spirit, because I'll either get fired or we'll have a good laugh after the webinar. But Carrie's my mentor. So, and I've learned so much in the last 4 years. And yeah, I'm kissing a little bit of butt here in case she doesn't like the fact that I put her awesome photo up. But Carrie is the owner, co-owner, and co-founder of the Content Factory, and she knows her business when it comes to SEO, when it comes to jazzy content. She's written for everybody and everything that you can think of. So that's why I'm so glad she joined me here, and especially in the Q&A part, because that's when I panic, because sometimes I might not know all the answers, but between the two of us, hopefully we can help you. So with that said, if there are any questions, we got a few minutes here to field anything from the crowd, and if you think of something later, maybe you can always email me there. That's my business email address. So with that said, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee and open the field to anybody if you got anything that maybe I went over too fast or something I didn't cover that you wanted to know about. And you can pipe in too. You're usually good at
If you have any questions, you can type them into the chat box. Oh, and here we do have one. Jason, dealing with narrow, dry areas, how do you create interesting topics? Example, liquid fertilizer tanks.
Oh, that's a good one. Well, there are a lot of really good blogs out there that just deal with how to market and how to blog, as you say, dry areas or things that might seem a little bit boring. I've seen it done in some different creative ways. One thing that comes to mind, one of the tab members, Rick Mayer from the Alternative Board in New York, I do a lot of press with him, and he answered some questions. He owns an HR company called Effective HR, and human resources. Everybody deals with them usually, but it could be considered a dry topic. He answered some questions for Business Insider, I believe it was, and they were just basic business questions. But that writer took his business questions and turned it around into a story about what entrepreneurs can learn from the Girl Scouts. Okay, now it was pretty sneaky, I got to admit, because the writer never told myself or Rick that this story had anything to do with the Girl Scouts. But what they were doing is taking a piece of content that probably would just get passed over and piggybacking it or latching it onto something that was trending. It was the week that all the Girl Scouts were out selling their cookies, and people were buying them and selling them in their offices. So it was sort of a hot trending topic. So that's one way that you can maybe sort of twist what you're doing. You see it a lot. People do it with movies, movie stars, big events like the Olympics or something like that. Top 10 things entrepreneurs are, okay, say in your case, what can liquid fertilizer tank salesman learn from the Olympics or something like that. It seems far-fetched, but it might create the most intriguing headline people see in that whole afternoon on their Twitter feed. So that's one way.
And another way, I think, is to educate your audience. So I imagine if you're selling liquid fertilizer, there are benefits to liquid fertilizer as opposed to the non-liquid form. So getting into that, talking about the best ways to get the biggest yield this year out of your home garden, or obviously target who your target audience is. If you sell to big commercial farms, you probably don't want to be targeting the at-home user, because the at-home gardener isn't going to be contacting you to potentially buy from you. So keep in mind your target audience and answer their frequently asked questions.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. You want to be speaking to the people that are your end users. Your goal in that case isn't to show up on BuzzFeed. Your goal is to sell your tanks. And she mentioned FAQs as a great source that you can mine. You can maybe you talk to salespeople within your company sometimes and brainstorm and come up with the things that people get asked on sales calls a lot. That's sometimes a good way for you to preemptively go out and answer questions that you know people are going to have about your product. So that's a couple ways that you might be able to twist something that's a little bit on the dull side, but still make it work for you.
We have another question. How do you balance content-driven blog posts versus salesy blog posts? For example, for content-driven posts, you allow one sales-driven post.
I operate by the motto, always be selling. So I don't see why the two have to be mutually exclusive. So going back to that FAQ style blog post, if you're teaching your core audience or your target how to do something, if you're educating them, first of all, you're establishing credibility with the fact that you know what it is that you're talking about and you can help them solve their problem. I think a lot of people run into the other problem of, okay, I know how to fix it, but I don't have time. So I read this blog post, and now I realize it's going to take me 5 hours longer than I thought. If you always close with a call to action, you're always selling, and you're always leveraging the expertise that you just established to get conversions.
Okay.
So my answer is both, I guess.
Yeah.
Combine the two.
And then we have one more question. Matt Cutts has come out to say that guest blogging is dead. Quote, stick a fork in it, he said. What have you found in your recent experience in terms of driving improvements via SEO?
So I'm going to first start by saying that, of course, he said that because he was taking a controversial stance on the issue. So he wants people to jump at his blog and say, no, guest blogging is not dead. It's alive and kicking, and it's bigger and better than ever. That's a way of, like, stirring the pot or poking the bear, as Jason said. And I think that that's a really effective way of generating blog traffic and sparking a conversation. Now that the conversation has been started, I don't think that guest blogging is dead. I think that you need to be very careful about the partners that you choose. So for example, if you have, I guess it largely depends on the status of your site. So if your site generates a lot of traffic and you've got a high Google page rank, you're coming to the table in a really strong position, and you've got something to offer in the form of valuable backlinks pointing from your site to theirs, which is going to help with the bloggers SEO. There are lots of benefits to having guest bloggers on your site. Number one, you don't have to write the content yourself. That's always a plus. Number two, if you have something written and posted on your site by somebody else, it's in their best interest to promote the content. So now instead of you being the only one to promote your content, you've got other people doing that legwork for you. So it's a great way to leverage larger networks than your own to increase the size of your network. So for example, if you're interviewing an industry thought leader, now this isn't, I guess, blog post, but it serves this purpose. If you're interviewing somebody, you want to try and get an interview with the biggest person in the industry that you can, because when that blog goes live, you can email them and say, hey, this went live. I gave you a great write-up. Feel free to promote it on your social networks. Now, that person, of course, is going to promote that content because they're featured in it and it makes them look good. So there's a lot of strategizing that you can do about how to get other people to promote your content for you, and guest blogging is a great way to do that.
Right, and in terms of he had asked about, or they had asked about recent experiences for us. One of the slides that I'd shared was the resolutions guest blog where we had Tab CEO Jason Zickerman as a guest blogger for Forbes. So obviously Forbes is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, and in this field, and content that if we just put that same content on Tab's blog alone, it would have been seen by the same people, whereas now it was viewed over 4,000 times. The link to the alternative board was right up there in front in his byline, and you can see that traffic. You can check it out in your analytics and see the clicks and how it's coming through based on something. The same content could have been put on any number of sites, but since Forbes was nice enough to have him as a guest, it really helped build some new fans for the company and the credibility. Same thing happened with the Vice President, Dave Scarola, recently, where he added some guest blogging content to Business News Daily. And that piece ended up getting picked up by Fox Business, like shortly after, within a week after it went on a smaller site. It started moving up the chain, and now all of a sudden, Dave's credibility as a thought leader is skyrocketing up, and the credibility of the company is moving along with it because he's got these great perspectives that people wouldn't have necessarily seen if it had just gone out on his own blog or on a smaller blog. So those are some recent examples of ways that traffic has increased by us promoting our representatives as experts in the field.
And to expound on that thought just a little bit more, it works the other way too. So you can write guest blogs like Jason Zickerman did for Forbes. You can write them for other publications or other blogs as well. So it's about really networking, and social media and Twitter lists, again, to plug that Twitter list again, are great ways to find avenues to accomplish that goal. Now when you blog on other sites, you want to make sure that the site has traffic that they can send to your site, because if you're writing for a blog that doesn't get any traffic, you're wasting your time. And you also want to make sure that you're linking back to your website in the content, the guest content that you write, so that you get that backlink on another site, and it drives some extra SEO juice in addition to driving click-through traffic.